refresh it, but I've seen her speak. She's an incredibly powerful speaker. She has an incredible background. She's really just kind of somebody who took a really tragic upbringing and transformed her life and just dedicated herself to public service. And so I found her amazing and inspiring, and so I knew who she was. So when this all came out, two things. There's been news about
when what all came out,
when all of the when her essay about Biden kind of coming up behind her and kissing her on the head.
Just for those who are under a rock.
Again, the folks who are not political nerds like us. When that came out, I knew who she was. So I knew the kind of person she was. So I felt like, okay, this is not a person who is new to the political world, but also isn't someone who shies away from tough conversations. So that alone, I was like, this is a person who's credible, who is powerful, and has a track record of standing up for justice. And then this comes out, and everyone is just piling on Lucy and defending Biden, when even as long ago as 2015, Jon Stewart and Samantha Bee did a segment on The Daily Show. They called it the audacity of grope. Yeah. Google it. The audacity of grope. The stuff that Biden is now, everyone is talking about him being sort of touchy-feely or handsy or whatever, euphemism you want to use. He's touching people without their consent. That's what it is. And they're saying, oh, it's not as bad as Harvey Weinstein or Donald Trump. I'm like,
no one's saying it's sexual assault. They're just saying exactly what it is: an invasion of space, touching without consent, kissing your head when you've just met a person. And you're breathing on them. Like, that is creepy AF. I don't care whether it was assault or not. It's about personal space. Women have the right to their own personal space. And this is not a political stunt. Yeah. We have seen this in video after video after. I mean, we have seen it with our eyes.
Yeah. And okay. And I'm not going to speak for you, Shauna, but I have experienced this personally in my life, as a young child, as, people just sort of not respecting your space. And you immediately, intuitively, even if you don't have the language, you know what it feels like when someone is not respecting your space or doesn't have, is not acknowledging that it's up to you whether you are touched or somebody is, showing affection towards you. It's not about their intention and their needs. It's about whether it's something that you want or that you accept. So it's
if you do push back and say, like, excuse me, I need some space or whatever, they go, Rear! Or, oh, sorry, or, you become the butt of a joke. So oftentimes you don't come right out and say it, especially if it's the vice president of the United States there to, endorse you or support you for a political office, which is, just think about it. Like, if you work at a corporation and the CEO, you're in a meeting where you're going to get acknowledged for, your hard work or, service to the company, and he comes up behind you, puts his hands, grabs your shoulders, kisses the back of your head, and I'm sorry, nuzzling behind you, for lack of better phrase, that's something reserved for someone you have a personal relationship with.
Right.
A spouse, a partner, your father, maybe, if you have a good relationship with your father, someone you've known and are familiar with.
Shauna, let's...
I'm just saying it could even be creepy if it is your own father, but it just depends on the person.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear that the history of gender-based violence and harassment and all of these things, there is something that is an attitude that somehow women's voices in this discussion are less important. And what's really disappointing to me is that I was telling you this before the show, that I was retweeting something that Lucy Flores said, and all these mostly white women were tweeting at Lucy saying, what's a big deal? You're wrong. This is not Me Too. You're just a Bernie bro, and you're making this up. It's like, no. This is well documented 4 years ago on Comedy Central. Well-known Bernie Bros, Jon Stewart and Samantha Bee talked about it.
So here's my question.
Right.
Why, when it's a, progressive woman of color, is it a political stunt? And why, when it's Blasey Ford, is it #believe women?
Because it's
That's the
white
question.
supremacy. White supremacy. That's
I'm
it.
just saying, if the person being accused is Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. Believe women, support women,
Right.
or else you're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
End of story.
Right. Do we want to take this call? There's a guy calling in.
About personal space.
Paul in Seattle? Sure, let's see what Paul has to say. I'm curious. Lady B, do we want to take that call? Line 2. Paul? Are you on? I don't think we're
All right, let's just move on.
I don't think he's on. I don't think it worked. But anyway, somebody was calling in from Seattle, which is kind of wild.
Now
Paul.
here he
Hey,
is.
Paul in Seattle. Did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you now.
Okay. Let me ask you a question about this.
Okay.
I'm a blind person.
Okay.
People come up and touch me all the time, just as a matter of identifying themselves. Sometimes the way they touch me is not necessarily the way I would do it. I don't touch people at all, obviously, because I can't see them. But do you think that I should be some kind of anal retentive dweeb and say, "Don't you touch me, I didn't invite you into my personal space"?
Well,
And
guess
how
what?
would that
Guess
make
what?
people feel, first of all, who
Yeah.
probably don't really know how to deal with blind people to begin with.
Yeah.
They're a little uncomfortable, and so I'm going to push them away and tell them, "Don't touch me until I give you permission." I really think that would come off really kind of weird. And
It's up to you, Paul, though. It's up to you.
You decide.
It's your personal choice.
You decide. You get to say, it's a.
And she could have said it. When did this happen? 2 years ago.
Paul, we're
sexual assault. So,
Paul, I appreciate.
She's uncomfortable. Does she still feel uncomfortable?
Paul, here's the question. If people touch you and you don't like how they're touching you, you get to say, "This is not okay." That's
Correct.
the point. That's the point.
Correct.
It's really. It's not more complicated than that. It is literally. You get to choose.
And what
this
I'm
is
asking is,
yeah.
Was it since you're acknowledging it wasn't a sexual assault, I don't know where the shame comes in. So, in other words, when somebody is sexually assaulted, I understand the shame aspect of it and the embarrassment and the humiliation. But this is a thing where she could have turned around and said, "Please, I appreciate if you just leave me alone. Please don't touch me like that."
Right before
Okay,
the
but Paul-
vice president of the United
Paul-
States is about to endorse you
yeah.
for public office. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, are the people who are touching
So
you?
there's a power structure here?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, Paul.
You're not making any
That's okay. So, thanks for your call. We're gonna let you go, but we appreciate that perspective. It is a power difference. That's the difference between consent and. So your point is well taken. If you don't like the way people touch you when you are, if they're trying to assist you or whatever they're doing, it is your choice to say that's not okay. That's how consent works.
And if you choose to, say, "Oh, this isn't a big deal. What's the point of getting in a fight about it? Just let it go." That's also your choice.
Absolutely. That's what I think people are not getting out of this. And Shauna's point is really important. If you are running for office and the second most important Democrat in the second most highest ranking member of your party is there to endorse you, of course there's a difference of power. Like, how is that not obvious?
When he's about to go on stage to talk about you, you're supposed to be like, "Back the F off."
Yeah, no.
No, that doesn't. No.
Yeah.
I can only imagine
Paul,
the feeling.
when you decide to run for office, call us because we want to have this conversation. If somebody does that to you and they seem to be like playing a power game, we want to hear it, and then you can let's talk about it. What you're describing is problematic, but a different situation.
So let's just talk about the election since we are running out of time. I think we should do a little debrief.
Okay.
So one great thing is that we now have 5 Democratic socialists will be on the city council, which is amazing. It's actually kind kind of unheard of in American politics, I believe, for this sort of sweep to happen. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the folks that are still waiting for results.
Yeah. So we got a couple.
In my ward, it's Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez versus Deb Mell.
Yeah. It's
I
pretty
believe,
tight.
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I believe it was around 60, 70 votes that Rosanna was ahead. Now I just heard, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, that has been whittled down by Deb Mell's team down to now 19. What's the day that we'll find out the...
April 16th, I believe.
So it seems like it's going to
2
be a
weeks.
really long time for those waiting.
It's going to feel painful. But I believe that's only a week from Tuesday. But that was the date that I saw that results are certified.
So now, her team has to raise money for legal fees and, it's just,
Right.
And then we also have another previous guest of To the Left, Marianne Lalonde, is going
Right.
through the same with James Kappelman
Right.
in the 46th.
Yeah. And then Will Calloway, I think, in the 5th.
Is he against Hairston?
Yeah, it's Leslie
Yep.
Hairston. I think those are the three that are outstanding. I thought it was that Hairston had a little bit more of a lead there. I think in the case of 46, Kappelman was a little bit ahead of Marianne Lalonde last time I checked. But, taking a step back, let's just, we're going to talk about the 40th Ward with a voter who kind of saw it all unfold. So don't think we have forgotten about the significance of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that in later in the show. And also we're going to talk about the 20th Ward. But I'd say we have just a few minutes if we want to just kind of give folks a little bit of a sense. We are going to be talking in a few minutes to Destiny Harris of No Cop Academy, specifically about that campaign and the Stop Lightfoot campaign. But what is your how do you briefly feel about how the runoff went for mayor? What's your kind of take on why that sort of broke down?
My take is that despite the terribly negative campaign run by the Preckwinkle camp,
yeah, and talk about that a little bit. Talk about what they did wrong.
I think the people that were hired by Preckwinkle are really slimy, terrible operatives that use every nasty trick in the book to sort of,
you know what? Don't hold back, Sean. Don't hold back. You know what? You're so shy sometimes, and I don't know what to do with it.
So I think they ran just a really negative campaign. They had a lot of surrogates on social media, just stirring up crap and causing all this infighting and,
Right.
In person, in public. And it was just right off the bat, it started off, I thought, on the wrong foot. And I think that rubbed people the wrong way. I think that whether it's true or not is kind of irrelevant right now because Lori Lightfoot, was able to successfully convince voters that she was the reform candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how does a two-time mayoral appointee, Daley Ann Rahm, do that? That's to me, there's some cognitive dissonance.
I think
there.
it's the same reason why Trump won. People are sick of the status quo. They're ready to shake things up, and for some reason are not going towards the progressive candidate. They're going towards someone who's the strong man or woman and the tough talking, reformer. I don't know, a little bit of an authoritarian slant as well.
Drain the swamp. I'm not kidding. It's funny. I was on when our good friend Ben was still on this station. I remember saying that we are going to elect a bully. That whoever wins, it's going to be a bully. That's who we're electing these days. We're electing bullies. And so what really bothers me is that that we don't have, when we'll talk about it with Destiny, but that we don't have a clear sense of how Lightfoot's going to be different from Rahm. I don't have a clear sense of that yet. So
well, she has no record to go by unless you look at her legal, her record as a lawyer, her record working with CPD, which a lot of that stuff is opaque. You don't see, the minutes for those meetings and who made what decision. So you can't really say she's a reformer. You have no idea.
Right.
Except for the few clips of public meetings that like Rakia Boyd's family took or whoever, you really don't have any insight. Like she could be just telling us whatever we want to hear. And, that worked.
Right. And, speaking of that, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk to Destiny Harris of the No Cop Academy campaign. You're listening to the Left. I'm Samina Mustafa.
And I am Shauna East.
And we'll be right back. I'm Samina Mustafa.
I'm Shauna East.
We're producing a show on WCPT Sundays at 1 o'clock.
What should we call it?
How about Smash the Patriarchy?
I like it, but that's a lot of pressure. What about left-leaning ladies?
What about woman-splaining?
Yeah, but what about when we have guys on? What about Madigan's worst nightmare?
He gets enough attention.
I got it. To the left.
I like that. That could work.
Tune in to the Left with Samina and Shauna on WCPT 820, Sundays at 1.
And we are back.
We're back, America/Finland.
You're listening to the Left. I'm Samina Mustafa.
And I am Shauna East.
And we are talking about the elections in Chicago because that's where we are physically right now, even though we think about the world. And we're really excited, actually, for people outside of Chicago, people in America, people in the world. Everybody saw the headline that we are elected the first Black queer female mayor in the city's history. And obviously the first Black female mayor. And we've only had one other elected Black mayor in the city of Chicago. But not everybody is excited. And there's some real valid reasons for that. And we've talked about it a little bit before in the segment. But we wanted to invite Destiny Harris of No Cop Academy to talk about the campaign called Stop Lightfoot and also No Cop Academy. So welcome, Destiny, to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here.
Yay!
I don't know if you can hear
That's our studio audience.
They're very tiny, but they're big fans, big fans. So Destiny, you and I met very briefly at the Crossroads Fund Gala where No Cop Academy got an award, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Can you talk briefly about No Cop Academy, just for the folks who are not familiar with it and perhaps are outside of Chicago, and then we can talk a little bit about the election?
Okay, yes, for sure. So to put No Cop Academy in simplest terms, youth-led, adult-supported campaign that was really created as a form of resistance to Rahm Emanuel's proposed plan to build a $95 million police training facility in the community of West Garfield Park. And Rahm introduced this idea over the 4th of July weekend, sneakily thinking that nobody would be paying attention, and we kind of got right up and really put his feet to the fire as $1 billion being invested in the police academy is kind of foolish after he has done multiple things and claims of like not having money, such as like closing down the 50-plus schools that were closed back in 2013, and this list of other things that I think to prioritize Black and brown communities, like policing, and so that was kind of.
Destiny, we're sort of losing the signal a little bit. I don't know if you can adjust your phone or change location a little bit. We're just the signal
cutting
seems
out a little bit.
Right.
Is that better? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Okay. So, do you want me to?
No. I think it's like, but more or less, the $95 million Cop Academy and Rahm proposes tried to kind of push it through on a quiet weekend, and yet has cut other things like school. So I think for the folks who didn't hear that, so go ahead and continue.
And so we've been calling for like investment in schools, investment in mental health facilities, investment in jobs. Things Black and brown communities are lacking, although the police are continuously getting more resources, despite the fact that they already get 40% of the city's.
Right.
And so that was just holding Ron accountable for that, letting him know that this is not something that people want in their community, that policing is not our vision of community safety.
Right.
And can you talk a little bit about the recent Stop Lightfoot campaign? I'm not sure if it started directly after Lightfoot made the statement about turning the CPS schools that had been closed into mini police training centers. If you can just talk about a little bit about the Stop Lightfoot campaign.
Yeah, so the Stop Lightfoot campaign came 12 days before the election. And this was before Lori Lightfoot said that she proposed like turning 38 of the closed schools into mini cop academies. But this came as a response of Lori Lightfoot painting herself as this for Black and brown people who's really gonna change what police accountability looks like, but completely discarding her past, right? As head of the OPS, a portion of the CPD failed to hold cops accountable. She failed to hold Dante Servin, the cop.
We're still losing you, Destiny. Is there a way you can get closer to outside or a window, or I'm not sure?
Try.
Okay. Are you still there, Destiny?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. We gotcha. So you were saying that so Lightfoot had sort of the specific case you were talking about is Dante Servin and the shooting of Rakia Boyd, which I think is probably the most well-known case where people feel like Lightfoot showed that she wasn't being sympathetic to the families and really made the wrong call.
Yeah, and just stuff like that. As a federal prosecutor, she's lied to get people deported. It's just like an accumulation of things that Lori Lightfoot has done in her past that kind of goes against what you would think of as progressive when you think of a candidate. And so Stop Lightfoot was all about bringing that truth to life, letting people know. Because a lot of people, Lori did a really good job of hiding her past, right, and painting herself as a progressive. And a lot of people felt good about her because she was Black. And so it's kind of like, yes, like how could she not be for the people? And so that was kind of what Stop Lightfoot was about in essence.
So
Right.
We just have a few minutes, but I was curious now that the campaign's over, like what are folks from No Cop Academy, Stop Lightfoot doing as far as holding our new mayor accountable, if anything?
Yes. So a lot of people, Lori Lightfoot won the mayoral election, that Stop Lightfoot would be over. But now Stop Lightfoot is about holding Lori accountable in everything that she does. Because now that she's in office, but I think she may actually begin to show her true colors. It's about continuing to hold Lori's feet under the fire in the same way that we did Rahm Emanuel. It's continuing to get ahead of what's going to happen to these closed schools, right? Because Lori said she wants to turn 8 of them into police training academies, right? We saw that there was an ordinance to turn South Shore High School into a cop academy. So it's really getting ahead of to be and how Lori is going to be held accountable for anything that she does that is not working in the future of like Black and brown people, young people, etc.
Yeah, and I do want to just, for the folks, again, who aren't as familiar with No Cop Academy and the groups that comprise it, it is primarily queer and Black-led, female-identified and non-binary youth who are leading this movement. And so I just really want to acknowledge that piece of it for the folks who like don't understand the context when people say, oh, we're really excited about a Black queer female mayor. There's some people who have similar identities who say we're not excited. So I just want to call that out. And just, like, I think there's about 100 organizations that are part of the No Cop Academy that have endorsed the No Cop Academy platform. Because that's actually No Cop Academy doesn't endorse candidates, but they were specifically concerned about Lightfoot's impact on these issues, correct? Destiny, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. That's
okay.
Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to call that out and just talk a little bit about like the organization that you are part of. Just since we have about a minute or so left, that kind of the organization that you work with. You were telling me briefly on the phone, and just how they work on sort of youth leadership. So.
Yeah, so I'm a part of this organization called Kumba Links, and it's kind of about using in art as a platform for social change. And so I think around the city, art is including that. Art is the way we make T-shirts. We let people know about what's going on. And so Kumba Links is really about letting youth be the future of the world, basically, of the United States, through using their art as a form of political change, social reform. So, yeah.
And if people want to learn more, is there a website or somewhere they can go online to check it out?
KumbaLinks.org.
So it's Kumba is KUUMBALYNX.
LYNX.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And just for those of you who's are thinking Destiny's name sounds familiar, if you attended the Bernie Sanders rally in Chicago, she was one of the speakers who opened for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Really powerful. Yeah, really powerful youth leader, someone we should be encouraging to lead Chicago perhaps in the future, Destiny.
Thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you for being on today.
No problem.
Thanks so much. Keep us posted on your work. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
So, thank you, Destiny. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have two regular Chicago voters, one from the 40th Ward and one from the 20th Ward. We'll come
They're
back.
Extraordinary. They're extraordinary.
We're going to hear from two Chicago voters on the current election and the climate following. So come right back.
You're listening to the Left. See you soon. I'm Samina Mustafa.
I'm Shauna East.
We're producing a show on WCPT Sundays at 1 o'clock.
What should we call it?
How about Smash the Patriarchy?
I like it, but that's a lot of pressure. What about left-leaning ladies?
What about womansplaining?
Yeah, but what about when we have guys on? What about Madigan's worst nightmare?
He gets enough attention.
I got it. To the left.
I like that. That could work.
Tune in To the Left with Samina and Shauna on WCPT 820, Sundays at 1.
We are back. You're listening to the Left with Samina and Shauna. You might also be watching us on Facebook Live at facebook.com/To the Left Radio. And if you're there, why not like our page and invite your friends to like it? Just saying. You can also find us on Twitter, Insta, as the kids say. Where our handle is the @ to the left radio. And follow us or something.
Yeah. So we are back. I'm Samina Mustafa.
I'm Shauna East.
And we have got some folks who are going to share their reflections on being voters in the Chicago election. We've got well, it doesn't matter if you're watching, it's to my left. We have Lisa Kosowski, who is a voter, very engaged resident of the 40th Ward. And then we have Dion McGill right next to her. Hey, Dion.
Hey.
In the 20th Ward, we just met before the show.
We actually put an open call out for someone, anyone to contact us who is interested in, who's not working, who didn't work on a campaign and didn't volunteer on a campaign, but who participated in a recent election. So that's exciting. We, just found you on social media, and now you're here.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I know.
My friends know I love to have a good time.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Okay, so it's so interesting that we, for those of you who are just tuning in, we're talking about the Chicago elections that happened on April 2nd, the runoff elections. And the two wards we're talking about, the 40th and the 20th, both had runoff elections. In the case of the 40th, there were 5 candidates, including the incumbent. And the incumbent, for those of you who don't know, was Patrick O'Connor, who has been in office since 1983 as part of the original Verdoliak 29. And he had a challenger in 2015, was put into a runoff then. So this was, he was kind of literally fighting for his political life. So, Lisa, talk about being a resident of that ward and what it was like to experience that election.
The current one or the one in 2015?
This one.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, this one. So it's interesting because, yes, he was challenged he had 4 challengers. I knew of 2 of them. I didn't know anything about the other 2 until I went to their second forum.
Okay.
And I was trying to decide between 2 of them, and I thought the forum was going to decide it for me. And then I got even more confused because they were great. Mm-hmm. All 4 of them were great. They all had different strengths. I ended up going with my original instinct. On who I thought would be the strongest candidate to beat him in the general election. And so the 4 of them were really good in these forums because they did not attack each other at all. So the 4 of them together forced him into a runoff. He only had 33% of the vote in the original election.
And the 4 were Ugo Carey, Diane DeLayden, Andre Vasquez, and Maggie O'Keefe.
And Maggie O'Keefe, that was the name I was forgetting. I'm like, I just won't say the names.
We're here to help.
Yeah, they all had different strengths, and I think all 4 of them together were able to keep him well under the 50%. And then the issue became then Andre won and beating him in the general election.
Yeah.
But I wonder because when Diane ran against him, and of course I supported her in 2015, she had 43. She got to 43%. Mm-hmm. So I really think, it's very exciting. It's very exciting because my first political awakening was the Harold Washington mayoral race, starting in the primary, but I was too young to vote then. So,
and now you got to be part of history.
I got to be part of history, but I finally we got Pat out.
I know. Yeah, we have a clear point of view on this show. So you're in, but like I do, just really briefly want to talk about how it got, and Shauna talked a little bit about this in 33, that it got pretty ugly between there was a website that Patrick O'Connor's team started about Andre, and it got pretty heated.
It did. It was insane. And I knew he used to be a battle rapper. Andre did. I didn't know much about it. And then all of a sudden, Pat O'Connor started, and he's known for this. I mean, all the machine candidates are getting dirty. And I think the strength for Andre was that Andre had worked so hard. He started really early. Like, I met Andre at the Midsummer Fest last June. I mean, and who was thinking about the mayoral race back then? And the, aldermanic races, nobody. And he was already on the ground meeting people. So I think once you meet Andre and you see what he's about and he's super authentic, in terms of who he is and his progressive agenda. And once you meet someone and you know them and you trust their character, there's no amount of dirt that people can throw at them that'll make you, shy away. I did have to, some Facebook friends and people I knew started to become uncertain. It's really funny how people always say they don't like dirty campaigns, but then it works on them and they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Who started saying, I don't know, maybe I just won't vote at all. I'm like, no.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
So, and Dion, you live in the 20th ward, correct? In
Yes.
Woodlawn?
Yeah, I'm so new to that neighborhood.
Well, what was your experience as far as your aldermanic race? And then maybe we'll take a few minutes and talk about the mayoral. There might be some opinions I think you might have.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming in, because I moved, my point of moving, I lived outside the city. I'm born and raised here in Chicago, but I wanted to move before the election. So I was like, friends, help me find a place, found this place in Woodlawn. I'm like, okay, boom, February 1st. I'm like, I can't even change my ID, right? So I'm like registering to vote at the, let me vote. Let's do this. So the original slate of candidates, I was just so like new. I didn't know anything. So someone gave me a tip off to check out one of the two candidates, which was Nicole Johnson. So I kind of like focused in on just checking out what she was about. And then at the Woodlawn Summit, I think it was, I met both the candidates just kind of in passing.
So Jeanette Taylor and
Nicole Johnson. And I mean, for me, I'm a big voter. I'm a big gut voter, right? It's like how my gut feels, how I feel when I talk to people, how do I feel when I leave from conversations with people. So between that and then, I don't know if you're familiar with the website Nextdoor. So Nextdoor in Woodlawn is huge, right?
Oh, really?
So everybody's on there talking and opinions, and here's what you need to look out for, and here's how awful this person is. And then at one point, the candidates were like, well, we had an agreement not to get dirty, but now we're starting to throw the dirt. And I was like, oh, so this is great. But in the end, when I went to the box, I was just like, here's who I'm voting for. So I did cast my ballot for Nicole Johnson, and she didn't win, and I'm not mad, So I'm hoping Jeanette does all the things she say she'll do, and so we move on.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But in your word, the field started. I want to say it was 15 candidates that had filed or submitted petitions.
There was like 7 or 8 finally that were on the ballot.
Yeah,
the
but
first
like
time.
But that submitted was like something like 50, and then the committeeman Kevin Bailey tried to knock a bunch of folks off the ballot, and so but the field started pretty big.
Yeah.
Because the incumbent was no longer running.
Yeah.
Willie Cochran.
Willie Cochran, yeah. The funniest thing is, because the metro station is a block away from where I live. So when I'd walk home at night, I'd see something on my windshield. I'm like, oh my God, I got a ticket. And each day it was like a flyer from a different candidate.
Oh no!
So
That's
even like February 3rd, it was like, I'm like, who's this guy? Like, I haven't even heard this name. And it was just, flyers, so many people. So some of them I just did not have the opportunity to even dig into because it was such a short time. And I don't own a TV. So I don't see any of the things. I have to look for everything I find when it comes to the election. So
yeah, which I think is fairly common. But that's I'm just with that such a big field. So
for sure.
I just want to tell Lisa that your nieces are listening and they're on our live stream. So
that's awesome.
It's
a family
you
affair.
really made it.
They're waiting for me for a late lunch.
So why don't we turn a little? We were talking just briefly earlier about why so many people voted for Lightfoot and why Preckwinkle wasn't able to pull this off, and we just wanted to maybe hear your opinions about the mayoral. We'll start with Dion.
Oh, I was like, well, I want to hear this one. This is gonna be good.
Okay.
Lori Lightfoot ran a really good race. To me, that was one of the things. Even in my neighborhood, I was biking yesterday. You still see Lightfoot posters everywhere. I don't see one Preckwinkle poster within 4 blocks of my house.
So what you're saying is her campaign staff and her campaign was run very well.
Oh, it had to have been, yes. And she, her messaging, I went to a couple of the forums. She always was on point with her messaging. Whether you believed it or not, she was really good at selling it, in the end. And I was having a conversation with Lisa. The person I voted for in February and who I voted for from March were totally different people. Mm-hmm. So in the race, I voted for Lightfoot, and then in the runoff, I actually ended up voting for Preckwinkle. And so, you know,
talk a little bit about why you switched.
Man, so for me,
Dion, take a breath.
Very briefly.
So for me, it kind of goes back to that idea of the gut. And I had this conversation yesterday. It, to me, someone who's uber chummy with the at least perceived with the police union leaves me with a feeling in my stomach that I'm just not going to hit that button on. And that's just reality. Because to me, the Fraternal Order of Police, they've made some statements within the last, we'll say 2 years, that I simply cannot. Anybody who's like, oh, well, we're friends. No, we can't be friends.
So are you saying one of the candidates is more chummy with the FOP than the other?
That was my perception. That was my gut feeling.
Any want to put it out there as to which one you're referring to?
Oh, well, I voted for Preckwinkle, so for me, Lightfoot. Like,
okay.
Kind of, and the more
just
I dug
checking.
in. No, absolutely. And the more I dug in, I was just kind of like, you know what? But I'm not mad she won. I mean, it's historic. It's breathtaking. I'm hoping she does the things that she said, especially when the statement she made about the police academies, and then she walked that back. So I'm hoping that walking back is a change of opinion, right? Which will turn into a change of practice, because that's, there's some things that the city absolutely does not need. And there's some things that the city certainly needs. So I'm hoping she does the things that we certainly need. And one of the things I don't think we need is to spend $95 million for a new building for police who, in my opinion, are not being trained well to begin with. Spend that 95 to train them better, and then we'll move from there, right? Then I'll totally
or
change.
spend an amount less than $95 million is another option, right? So
if it gets them to do their job well,
yeah,
and correctly, I'll spend I'll go over $95 million. But right now, from what we've seen over the past couple of years, my personal opinion, I don't think they're trained well, and I think as a result, what we see on the streets day to day is the effects of that.
And there's no real correlation between policing and reduction in crime. So there's a disinvestment in these neighborhoods, and I think a lot of the people who are, part of No Cop Academy, are fighting for that money to be invested into the communities rather than to go towards continued policing.
Absolutely. And that I'm all for, for school counselors, schools, all the programs that we know that youth especially need to have stronger communities, to be stronger in and of themselves. So, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Lisa, do you want to chime in here? Now you get your...
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much where you are in terms of that's what gave Preckwinkle the edge for me, was the whole police thing. For the most part, that was the deciding. I voted for Preckwinkle in both. I started off with Behind Amara, and then for strategic reasons switched to Preckwinkle because I just got so scared that Daley was going to win.
You switched to Preckwinkle the first round.
In the first round, yeah. So I just got convinced by a lot of my progressive friends. They're like, Daley's really picking up steam. He's getting all this money. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, I'm voting for Preckwinkle. And then I ended up voting for Preckwinkle again. And for me, there were two things. There was the police connection, which was a big one because I'm a guardian ad litem. I have kids that have a lot of contact with police, and also I'm an activist, and a lot of my friends are activists. I want to know who's going to be safest when we're out protesting on the street. So all of these things together. And then the other thing was just, even though Preckwinkle's made some strategic mistakes, definitely not progressive actions in the last 10 years or so, she does have a track record of progressive action. There are things that she's done that have been very good. Getting immigrants health care through the Cook County health system, helping to reduce the population at Cook County Jail, things like this. Lori had no record, none. I couldn't find anything, and I dug. And I knew people who were very strongly behind her. I even asked them, I'm like, show me anything. Show me a photo of her at a march. Something progressive. And so I just didn't, I'm just so tired of people running on a progressive message, saying I'm progressive, and they've got no track record.
Yeah.
So now I'm just in the hopeful phase. I know some very, very good people, some very progressive, smart people, and she has their ear. And they have her ear. Somebody has somebody's ear. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
you're hopeful.
And so I'm hopeful. And we're all going to be out there, and we would have had to be out there anyway,
Right.
to watch, to keep an eye on things, and to raise our voices when we need to.
And one question I have is, Preckwinkle had a lot of she had union support. She had progressive candidates coming out, or aldermen and other public figures that had endorsed her. She had a lot of progressive support, publicly speaking. But what do you think it was why she fell short? I'm just curious, Lisa, why you think Preckwinkle didn't make it.
Okay, this is just total supposition on my part. It really felt like after the general election, she wasn't in it. She was MIA. You weren't seeing her at things. I know on the Ben Joravsky show, and of course that's in the Sun-Times building, they endorsed Lightfoot, but he had invited Preckwinkle to come on the show a number of times, never got a response. People wanted to hear from her, and she wasn't there, and I don't know whether... I never really was clear on what her motivation was on running for mayor versus staying as the Cook County Board president. Maybe she got in there because she was afraid of Daley taking over, and then once I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. It just felt like she wasn't really out there campaigning and fighting for this. And once Lori got momentum, that's what happens. You get a few big names, a few big unions, and then all of a sudden you get, and then she got the endorsements from both major papers. And then that thing happens where people want to be on the side of the winner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They want to be the one on the side of the winner. And then once she got that momentum, there was no stopping it. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Jobs.
Yeah, and there were some endorsements that came out early, like Rod Joy was somebody who came out for her way before anyone else did. I think he actually was at her announcement for Lori Lightfoot's announcement. But yeah, I mean, and then I know that I was getting emails from Jan Schakowsky with a list of women activists saying they were for Preckwinkle. So there were definitely sort of dueling endorsements, but. In terms of the what's next, sort of like we were talking with Destiny, it's now it's just we're going to wait and see. What did you say and what are you going to do?
Absolutely.
So
we just have a few minutes.
So I do want to just, since Lisa got to chat a little bit about your work with youth, it's kind of interesting. Both of you are actually very youth focused in your day jobs. Yeah. So, Dion, if you want to talk about the organization, I know you're not here representing them, but if you can just mention that you have some work done. I know, but you have some you're not just average voters. You guys are in the communities and have a perspective that's a really important point of view.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I do a lot of nonviolent violence prevention work here in the city. I work right now for an organization which shall remain nameless.
Okay, fair enough, Dion. Fair enough, Dion.
But my previous organization, which I'm no longer with, was the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence. So I did education programs there. I do communications, community outreach now. So before that, I was a school teacher. So I taught here in CPS. So my last couple of years have all been youth focused, whether it was through educating, which to me is still a form of violence prevention, and then now with guns, and then now an organization that has a expanded approach. And so we do a lot of work with nonprofits, with anybody, any stakeholder who wants to see youth doing better in our city, we rock with, right? So I always tell people, come rock with us, and we'll, Google, it's not hard to find. You'll figure out where I work. You want to come rock with us and do good stuff, come rock with us, but,
Yeah, but I appreciate, our sort of the sub-theme of the show has been what the theme has been the election, the sub-theme is just sort of the impact on the youth of the city. And really that, what's the future of this city going to be with the future of the leadership of the city. So, I feel like it's interesting what you said, Lisa, about Preckwinkle being kind of absent. I think what was missing was there was a negative case against Lightfoot, but it wasn't a positive case for Preckwinkle.
Correct.
I think that's
very true.
Yeah, they ran a negative campaign, like I said earlier, and I don't think that I think people are tired of it. They're just fed up. They want to know what are you fighting for instead of what are you against.
Exactly. And she's done so many good things, and she has a really interesting history with how she came to be into politics, and that didn't come across in her ads or anything at all. I think that was a huge mistake.
Right. And we only have we're kind of getting towards the end of the show. Are there any comments on our social media page?
Someone said that you guys should support our show on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. Wow, that is amazing. We agree.
And Lisa, thankfully, has already been a supporter of the show. She was at our Hideout show the other day, so thank you for that, Lisa.
So you can do that. You know, we're listener supported. Our listeners pay for our airtime. We're, you know, really independent media led by women. So please do consider a monthly donation via Patreon at patreon.com/To The Left Radio. And then I just quickly want to thank Ms. Lady B, Dennis, Destiny Harris, Lisa Kozowski. Did I say that right?
That's fine.
Dion McGill.
That's a no. That's a no.
How do I say it?
It's Lisa Kosowski. The W is pronounced like an F.
Okay.
I let the Kosowski go because it's close enough.
Okay.
Like, as long as people don't throw other letters in, I'm good.
We can say that. We can do that.
And just thank Dion McGill coming all the way from Woodlawn. That's amazing. All the way to WCPT Studios on the far northwest side.
And you just got a grocery store, so go Woodlawn.
Oh man, and it's amazing. I was there last night.
Okay. Go Woodlawn. Woodlawn is winning all around.
Oh man, awesome.
And then I just wanted to plug our April 14th show. So next Sunday,
right,
we're going to have JJ Wett. And JJ Wett is he's an elected out in DeKalb County. And he is a disability rights activist, and he's going to talk about the link between disability and poverty in the U.S. And then we're also going to have Alex Lawson, who is the executive director of Social Security Works, who's going to be a call-in guest to also talk about the link between old age and poverty. So we're going to do a couple topics linking, you know, the discussion on poverty. And then one more plug, and then we can...
Oh, and we have one more guest. We're going to have Sharonda Knott Dawson, who's an activist in the western suburbs as well. So talking about the disability rights as well. And then you said you were going to have one more plug.
So tomorrow, one of our Patreons, Progressives of Kane County, asked me to come out and speak there in Aurora. I'm going to be speaking about Illinois for Bernie grassroots campaign at the Two Brothers Roundhouse at 205 North Broadway in Aurora from 7 to 9 p.m. is my little plug.
Oh, nice.
So come out and let's eat some pizza.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming to the studio. I am sort of cautiously, I'm watching because there's been all kinds of fake news going about who's on Lightfoot's transition team.
Oh, God.
Do you see the Arnie Duncan? The Arnie Duncan, like,
rumor.
I'm just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like, he's still got a couple of weeks to do what he wants to do to the city. So he's trying to push that South Shore Cop Academy. He's got a few weeks, so
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, I know. But it's only a few more weeks, but he's trying it. But we've got about a minute left, Shauna. Any last final thoughts? No?
Oh, one thing that is exciting is I tabulated all of the results looking at the full city council now, and one piece of good news is that now, according to my criteria for who is a progressive and who isn't, which I can talk about in another show,
Okay.
we have 20% of the city council are now progressives.
Okay. That's a block.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, that's meaningful.
That we can really shake things up, I think.
Yeah. And so like that's the hope, again, cautiously optimistic, is those folks are going to be able to push an agenda.
And hopefully Lori Lightfoot is going to be a weak mayor to start, and that the Progressive Caucus or Socialist Caucus or whatever can, be a good counter to that and, maybe get some stuff done.
Yeah.
Or at least force some debates, and rather than just rubber stamping everything through.
Get some press around certain issues. And what do you think?
I'm excited to see what happens. But beyond that, hey, man, I'm looking forward to a new Chicago.
That's absolutely.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you. That's Dion McGill. We've got Lisa Kosowski. Got it. From the 40th Ward, Dion from the 20th Ward. I'm Samina Mustafa.
And I am Shauna East.
And you're listening to the Left. We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.